All right, we are back. We have a lot to talk about. This is the Lineup Podcast. I'm Dave Prodan here with Mitch Salazar. Event number 10 on the 2025 WSL Championship Tour season, the Corona Cerro Open J-Bay, finished over the weekend with Gabby Bryan and Connor O'Leary taking the big wins in, let it be said, pumping surf on finals day. Next up on the CT is the final stop of the regular season, the Lexus Tahiti Pro presented by IC in just a couple of weeks, an event that will determine the WSL Final Five who will compete for the world title in Fiji. More on that later. First things first, Mitch. Lots of late nights watching J-Bay for us West Coast boys. How are you doing today? How is the fake jet lag?
Yeah, it's still getting adjusted, but luckily for us, this event isn't as bad as Portugal or as Abu Dhabi. We're in the post-cut landscape, so shorter events, which mean great days of surfing. We can really, pick the eyes out of the forecast, which was, surprisingly to us, probably some of the best J-Bay we've ever seen on finals day. The rest of the event was definitely hard, but overall very satisfied. Really nice to see some people step up to the plate, and of course, seeing some champions out there, and especially in the dog camp. Congrats to Richard Dog Marsh, Connor O'Leary, and Gabby Bryan. They're taking away wins at Jeffreys Bay, and of course, I think it just goes to show how iconic this venue has been overall and why it's so deserving to be on tour, Dave.
100%, and it was always, anyone that's been on tour for long enough will notice a trend of like the second that people start talking about, oh, the swell's coming, we're going to finish in the first 3 days, it's like, no, you're not. You're going right down to the end. And tricky forecast, but I think you're right. Like, it's arguably the best point break on the planet, one of the best right-handers on the planet, and finals day showed that. I was a little bit nervous because of the pre-event hype around we're running in the first 3 days when they started talking up epic conditions on finals day, like best conditions we've seen in years, inside and outside of competition. But boy, did it deliver. But let's get into it, man. Let's do winners and losers. Who you got?
Well, that's basically my first loser right there. It's just how tricky the forecast can be for this location. And, Felipe said it best in one of his post-heat interviews. I believe it was during the round of 16 day. It wasn't really that great out there. There were waves. It was a bit consistent, but a lot of wind swell in the water. It wasn't necessarily something that you were looking for down the line. And I think those people that were just able to make adjustments on the fly, surf a 30, 35-minute heat perfectly, well, they were the ones that advanced. But overall, this is obviously a venue that we all want to see on tour permanently. We've seen the Aki Curran eras. We've seen the Andy Kelly eras. And now, Felipe, John, and of course, Connor winning his first one right here. This is what we want to see. And in the end, it's not always going to be perfect, but it's still a world-class wave. And as you said, it has potential to be called maybe the world's best right-hand point break. So South Africa is deserving to be on the schedule. I also think is an important market for us too, especially with that time zone over there. But don't necessarily expect that every single heat that you're going to paddle out for is going to be perfect. And, that's the cool thing about forecasting. Yeah, you could be seeing something down the line, as you said, all that speculation about finals day maybe being the best day ever out there. But in the end, the best forecasts are your own two eyes. So you got to be checking it every single morning.
It is a tricky spot. It's one of those spots where they call the event off and all the footage is coming out where you're like, that looks really good. Like, what's going on? And then other days where they put it on hold. I was there, it was a while ago. I think it does hold the record for the most hold calls in a single day. I remember we were there. The swell was supposed to be coming. We went on hold 9 times. And just every 30 minutes, it was just us sitting there looking at like a flat ocean, thinking the waves are going to start coming. So it is tricky. It's a good call. First loser for me, though, out of South Africa, anyone on the men's side not named Iago Dora that was eyeing a world title this year. Now, am I saying that Iago is a lock for the world title? No. However, as we've been talking about for years at this point, Iago Dora may be the best all-around surfer on tour right now. Forehand, backhand, airs, turns, style, barrels, reef breaks, beach breaks, point breaks. There just isn't a venue on or off tour right now where Iago doesn't paddle out and people are well within their rights to believe he's the best surfer in the lineup. Now, it'd be one thing for him to be, quote unquote, in the mix in Fiji. It's another thing altogether for him to be the number 1 ranked surfer on Earth heading into the WSL finals. So Iago's clinched. He has clinched his shot. He will have a shot at the world title this year. He's amazing in Tahiti, which is the final regular season stop in a couple of weeks. And if he's holding the number 1 position when we touch down in Fiji, I mean, Iago Dora may very well be the 2025 world champion in just a few weeks. No jinx, but that's my first loser is the non-Iagos on the men's side.
And it might be a good little predecessor to what we could potentially see in Fiji, too, because Tahiti's not always guaranteed to be pumping, 6 foot, 8 foot faces when it comes to just barrels. It could be small. You'd have to maybe turn and then progress a little bit when it comes to your surfing, too. So Iago's definitely, one of those picks that you definitely should have on your fantasy team for that event in Tahiti as well. And it's a good pick because out of the top 5 at the moment, he is the only person to clinch his spot, which is surprising considering how good Jordy and Kano have been all year long. And, it's a good one right there. And props to him. Congratulations. First time ever qualifying for the Lexus WSL Finals. And he has a chance to be the number 1 seed while doing it, too. Second loser for me, the women's low seeds, both Luana Silva and Erin Brooks. They lose out early in this event. I was expecting more, especially from Luana, but Erin, just a couple of small mistakes that cost her. It's the same thing that we saw last year in a couple of Challenger Series events. She lets go of a couple important waves during the heat. Priority mistakes. Obviously still a rookie. She's going to be Rookie of the Year no matter what. She's the only one that made the cut. But in the end, you have a chance to move a couple of spots, and especially considering that Tahiti probably would have been an amazing event for her to potentially qualify for the finals after winning in Fiji last year. I want to see her make a push right here at the end. Might not be the case still. Mathematically, there is still a chance. I will say that, but it's looking pretty grim for both Lulu and Erin to make it to the finals this year. But I will say Tahiti could be a wild card. A lot of those women still looking to improve their barrel riding skills. And for Erin Brooks, well, she's won at Pipe before. And, of course, we all know what she can do in Fiji, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have one mind here. The second loser from J-Bay for me was the Erin Brooks Rookie World Title Hopefuls fan club, right? And, I mean, as a rookie, Canada's Erin Brooks, she's been sensational. 3 semifinal finishes, 2 additional quarterfinal finishes, made the cut, Surfer Magazine cover, multiple excellent scoring rides, and a very deserving CT Rookie of the Year title. But I think that expectation monster, right, that reared its head before the season even started, fed in large part by, her wildcard win in Fiji last year and just mind-blowing free surfing performances. That monster is ever ravenous, and it had plenty in the surfing world eyeballing Brooks for a rookie start in the WSL Finals in Fiji, the same location where she won as a wildcard last year, and a shot at the world title. But as you pointed out, few mistakes in that elimination round. 9th place in Jeffreys Bay. She went down to 2-time world champion Tyler Wright, and 9th on the rankings. So it's not looking likely for her this season, but I'm with you. I think we should all keep an eye on her in Tahiti.
Yeah, and of course, I think another thing that we actually talked about preseason during the 2025 calendar year, a lot of people were asking, can Erin pull it off? Can she pull a Stephanie Gilmore? And, both you and I agree that there wasn't really a chance of us seeing her become a world champion her very first year. It's still possible, yes, but in the end, I think what Stephanie had back in 2007, you look at the majority of the events on tour, they're all right. I mean, the vast majority of them. So Erin's having to go on her back in the majority of the time. She's won there. Yeah, I get that. But in the end, you're always going to be way more confident, especially in search of a perfect wave going left. So, sky's the limit for her eventually in the future. And I think that she has a lot of potential to both grow and, of course, win her very first championship in the 2026 season. Not to say that it can't happen in 2025. There's still a mathematical chance. My third loser, Dave, the wild card's right here from J-Bay. A bit disappointed, if I'm honest, because we have Kika Veselko, who is currently leading the Women's Challenger Series rankings. I was expecting a bit more from her. Sarah Baum, an Olympian who actually won the specialty event right here at J-Bay last year. I thought she underperformed. She's still on the Challenger Series looking to qualify for the CT one day. Matt McGillivray, I will say, when he skydove into actually paddling out for his first heat, I thought that was one of the most radical things we've ever seen on the championship tour. So props to him for that. He did disappoint me a little bit when it comes to competition in the event, though. And the only person I will say that actually pulled a rabbit out of their hat and pushed Jordy Smith, world number 1 at the moment, by the way, to the very limit, was Luke Thompson. He's coming off of the Challenger Series win at home in Bolito. Props to him. Still, all the wild cards that I was expecting a bit more, at least a round or two out of them to make it through in this event.
For sure. And I mean, J-Bay has that amazing history with wild cards too. Andy Irons' nemesis, Sean Holmes, back in the day, was just a monster. So I was really impressed with Luke Thompson, though. Obviously, the tricky thing when you're wild card is you're drawing the world number one. So that I was really impressed with his surfing. I think that's a kid that we should keep our eye on. Third loser for me from South Africa are the quote-unquote wildlife holds. I get it. We don't want to sensationalize anything, and no one here is suggesting we do it, but it is the information age. You know, if you say the surfing event is on a wildlife hold, the entire world knows it's a shark within minutes. As an aside, like a huge shout out to the events team for the measures they have in place. They got drones, they got spotters, they got water safety. It's a huge benefit to the surfers who want to be performing at their very best without very reasonable distractions on their minds. You know, it's like, football players aren't worried about like a pack of wolves circling the football pitch or anything like that. So I think it's like a 1-to-1 comparison. But every surfer on or off tour, we know that when we enter the water, we're entering the homes and domains of ocean animals, including sharks. So yeah, I think where appropriate, without sensationalizing it, we can just say there's a shark swimming through the lineup and we're on hold until it moves on. But that's my third loser coming out of South Africa.
No, it's a good one, and I think it obviously exemplifies what we go through here in South Africa too, and why it's so difficult to actually run a lot of these events worldwide, because there's always going to be that question of what if, and that's not just the one thing either. Lack of swell is obviously one thing, the weather, and we've also been on multiple holds due to, thunderstorms throughout the entire calendar year over the course of, the last 10 seasons, I would say. So, yeah, big props to everybody in tours and comps. And, of course, I want to give a major shout out to everybody on the ski and water safety, too. They do such an amazing job at this event, especially when it comes to picking the surfers up. They make sure that the surfers are outside of the impact zone, which, as you know, that end section right there, right on top of the reef, is dangerous. And we saw a lot of heavy wipeouts in that area. So props to all the guys on the skis and water patrolling, because they did an amazing job as always. Let's get into our winners, Dave. And of course, as goofies ourselves, we got to give it up to the goofy-footed men's finalists. Only the second time in history here at J-Bay where we've had two goofy-footed males in the final at the same time. Last one was in 2019. Gabe defeats Italo. And, of course, right here, Connor Early in a comeback win against Iago Dora. A big moment for him, his first one ever since qualifying for the Tour in 2017. Yeah, he's won at the Challenger Series level. He's won at the QS level, but never at the CT level. Only his second final. And, of course, here in J-Bay, what a great comparison to Mark Akalupa. And, of course, props to Iago Dora. This position he's in right now, world number one, heading into Tahiti for the first time ever, a chance to become world champion in 2025 as well.
I love it. And I've got that one too. I won't go into it yet. I want to hit something slightly different, but you mentioned him already. The first winner for me out of South Africa is the dog. Richard Dog Marsh, former CT superstar out of Cronulla turned elite surfer mega coach. Quick note on Dog Marsh. Everyone's obsessed with Nicky Wood being the youngest CT surfer ever to win a CT final. He won it at 14 at Bells Beach. The dog was in that final, and the dog was 15. So I think, he's always kind of been there. He's a little bit of Forrest Gump. He's always been kind of in there at the important surfing moments. But both the men's and the women's winners, Connor O'Leary and Gabriella Bryan, are out of the dog stable. Took me a lot of restraint not to say the dog pound there. But both winners, that's huge. And let it be said, the surfers, they deserve all the credit in the world. We are huge Gabriella and Connor fans here on the lineup. But also, as we've discussed previously, neither of these surfers had the surf industrial complex pedigree that some of their peers had. Gabriella qualified with relative quiet before ascending to her current world number one spot. And Connor O'Leary is a former surf shop kid. So yes, both of them deserve endless praise for who they are and what they've achieved. But also, I think the dog deserves a ton of credit for nurturing the talent he has in his team and for the big wins last week in South Africa.
It wasn't Connor actually working in a surf shop during COVID too? Didn't he actually pick up a few shifts to be able to pay
could
for
have
a
been.
couple
I
of the
know.
bills?
I think Liam O'Brien, he worked in the surfboard factory. But yeah, Connor, he worked at a surf shop in Cronulla, before as he was qualifying, back in the day. So yeah, I mean, anyone that's in a shop kid, myself included, we love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, support your local surf shops, by the way. I mean, they depend on us. And especially when it comes to Dog, this is even a fuller circle moment for him just because he actually babysat Connor as a kid right there in Cronulla. So
cool.
Really cool stuff. And, of course, awesome to see some power surfers win at one of the most and most respected venues, I should say, worldwide at Jeffreys Bay. Second winner obviously has to be the global surfing market. We talked about how Africa is such an important market and area for us. Of course, same time zone as the European region too. So big to see them get an event within their home time zone. And of course, overall, I would have to say, just when it comes to actually being the World Surf League, this is a premier location for us. You talk about Australia, obviously maybe the biggest surfing market on the planet. And I think Jeffreys Bay is just an iconic venue. And yeah, despite it being difficult for people here on the west coast of the U.S., people in Australia watching the event, in the end, you're still watching world-class surfing. So if you want to stay up, it's 4 or 5 days that you have to do so. And I think in the end, you're still delighted to see not only world-class surfing, maybe the best surfing you've ever seen in your life. Once again, Felipe Toledo redefining how to surf this wave back in 2017 with a perfect 10 double alley-oop. In the end, we transition into 2025 right now. A great final between two goofy footers, and it just goes to show how complex and how difficult the tours become. But only the second time in history we've had an all-goofy-footed men's final right here. So the global surfing market benefiting from this, and of course, major props to Corona and everything they do for surfing too. They have really brought this forward with us, and just major appreciation for them because they sponsor a lot of events for us now.
Yeah, no, it's a great call. And yeah, my second winner, you hate already. It's the Goofy Footers. And, you know, we had both men's finalists with Connor winning and Iago Dores the runner-up. You had a semifinalist on the women's side in Caroline Marks. Even Connor's 10. Good gravy.
Yeah.
You know, but I was going back through kind of the storied Jeffreys Bay event history, and as you pointed out, Connor's now only the third goofy footer to win this prestigious event in history. He had Mark Occhilupo in 1984, Gabriel Medina in 2019, and now Connor O'Leary in 2025. Funny aside, though, if you do go to the Wikipedia page for the J-Bay Open, under the 2015 results, the men's runner-ups are both Mick Fanning and Julian Wilson. The men's winner, it just reads Shark. And you know what? I have no notes on that. I think that's very, very accurate. But Mitch, you know, we'll put Aki off to the side for a second because he's kind of a inimitable case study. But I do remember, you know, when Gabe won in 2019, there was very solid surf on finals day, similar to finals day this year. And I was going to ask you, do you think that kind of size and swell is almost a prerequisite for a goofy footer to win here?
Oh, good question, because we have seen Joan Duru was runner-up to De Souza at a QS final right there. The waves were pumping too. And I believe Damien Hobgood was runner-up to Joel Parkinson in 2009 at the location. And it was a bit smaller, but it was just one of those days that was perfect for regular footers. It was a much harder read for goofies. And it's actually an important question to discuss because you could say the same thing for regular footers going left on tour. Is it more beneficial for them having more size and maybe more explosiveness going into the lip rather than a goofy footer that can fit in certain turns where they couldn't? I'd have to say yes, personally, because especially for the style of Connor O'Leary and even both Gabe on the backhand too, I think it's way better for them to be able to go up and vertical on a sizier wave than when it's small. You just don't look as explosive. It doesn't look as dynamic. And I think in the end, spray matters a lot at a location like this when you're trying to emphasize your power. So yeah, actually a great question and a great point out right there, Dave, because in the end, I think that is what both benefited Iago and Connor personally.
Right.
Third winner for me, I got to give a couple of special mentions, by the way, because this was a hard event for me to actually pick my winners, just because there were so many good things about it. I want to give props to Marco Mignot, knocking out Jordy Smith in the round of 16. He made it into the quarterfinals for the second time this year. He is really close to becoming Rookie of the Year. Joel Vaughn still in the mix, obviously, and Al Cleland Jr. And I also want to say, Griffin Colapinto has been surfing out of his mind the last 6 events. He is one spot out of the finals at the moment, and he has a great chance to qualify over in Tahiti. So, Griff, if you're listening right now, whatever's working, do not change it. It seems like you're having a ton of fun and make things exciting over there in Tahiti. But my winners come down to both the men's and the women's top 5. I mean, despite early exits from both Betty Lou Sakura Johnson and Caitlin Simmers, they still remain in the top 5. Katie already clinched her spot in the Lexus WSL Finals. On the men's side, Jordy Smith bows out early, only drops one spot in the rankings, though, to world number 2. Everyone else except Iago remain in their respective rankings, talking about Kanoa, Italo, and Ethan. And, of course, they have all done the heavy lifting so far this season. Now the pressure is going to remain on everyone else to deliver in Tahiti and secure their spots in Fiji, because you look at the men's top 10 especially, it is razor close when it comes to 4, 5, and 6. Italo, Ethan, and Griffin, just about 1,500 points separating there. You have Felipe still in the mix, Jack Robinson, former champion, and can't forget about Barron and Leo. I am excited for this one. It is going to be a banger, and of course, we're just talking about perfect barrels in Tahiti. That's what I'm hoping to see out there in the South Pacific.
Yeah, you and I are of one mind. You know, the surf fans are my third winner coming out of J-Bay, because we're about to get a huge showdown for the WSL Final 5 positions at Teahupo'o. As you mentioned, Tahiti, it's the last regular season event of the CT season, and when the dust settles there, the top 5 men, the top 5 women on the CT rankings, they will have punched their tickets to the Lexus WSL Finals in Fiji and a shot at the 2025 world title. So, as we've been talking about, we only have one men's surfer, the front runner, Iago Dora, who has secured his spot. 2nd through 5th right now are Jordy Smith, Kanoa Igarashi, Italo Ferreira, and Ethan Ewing. And just outside the top 5, Griffin Colapinto at 6th, Felipe Toledo at 7th, Jack Robinson at 8th, Baron Mamiya at 9th, and Leo Fioravanti at 10th. So 4 spots up for grabs on the men's side, and a lot of hitters looking to fill them in Tahiti. And then on the women's side, we have 3 out of the 5 final spots are secured. Current world number 1, Molly Picklum, J-Bay event winner Gabriella Bryan, and reigning world champion Katie Simmers. That means that we've got 2 spots up for grabs on the women's side, and we've got Isabella Nichols at 4th and Betty Luce-Kura Johnson at 5th, with world champions Caroline Marks and Tyler Wright hovering at 6th and 7th, respectively. TLDR, or DL, keep your eyes glued to the screen in Tahiti.
I love it, dude. And I'm just hoping it's 6 feet and perfect, because people there deserve a chance. I mean, it's been one of those exciting years. You know, really bummed about Barron getting injured at that point of the season in lowers, because I feel like his ranking would be higher.
Sure.
That being said, he still has an amazing chance. We talked about him not having to be 100%. We still have basically a month in between right now in J-Bay and then heading into Tahiti, so there's a good amount of recovery right there. But when it comes to just straight barrel riding, there's not really a huge physical demand or toll on your body. So I feel like Barron has a big chance right there. Same thing for Jack Robinson. And I will say, Connor O'Leary, once again, mathematically speaking, he is still in the running to potentially qualify for the Lexus WSL Finals. It would be a Cinderella story for him if he's able to do it. He does well in Tahiti, and of course, an amazing barrel rider. He loves it when it's big out there, so watch out for him when it comes to your fantasy team as well.
I like it. So that wraps winners and losers for the Corona Cerro Open J-Bay. We're going to take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to talk surfboards. All right, welcome back to the Lineup Podcast. I'm Dave Prodan here with Mitch Salazar. It's time to discuss where we're at with the 2025 Vizsla CT Shaper Rankings. So I actually restrained myself and didn't mention this in the winners and losers segment, but we're in our 3rd year. And a quick reminder how we measure the Vizsla CT Shaper rankings. We combine the men's and women's rankings. So we count all surfers finishing in the quarterfinals or better. The shapers receive the same rankings points that correlate to their respective surfer finishes. Higher the surfer places, the more points that shaper receives. We've been tracking the Vizsla CT Shaper rankings since Pipeline, and we will finish in Tahiti. In addition to being honored the 2025 CT Shaper of the Year at the WSL Awards, 2025 Vizsla CT Shaper rankings will be gifted an overnight stay and surf at Surf Ranch Lemoore, courtesy of the Kelly Slater Surf Ranch and the WSL. Okay, so Mitch, we have basically been monitoring this since CT3 in Portugal, when they first took the VC TSR lead for the season, and now they've done it. Matt Biolis of Lost Surfboards is now the 3-time CT Shaper of the Year, back to back to back, clinching the 2025 Vizsla CT Shaper Rankings title with the completion of the Corona Cerro Open J-Bay. In South Africa, Lost Surfboards had runner-up Iago Dora and semi-finalist Griffin Colapinto posting team results on the men's side, as well as women's quarterfinalist Betty Luce-Kura Johnson, semi-finalist Caroline Marks, and event winner Gabriella Bryan. And while there's still 97,900 potential points up for grabs in Tahiti for the 2025 Vizsla CT Shaper rankings. Mayhem and team are currently 124,980 points out in front, and so they've clinched. Mitch, what are your thoughts?
Well, congratulations to Matt and his incredible team, Wiley Archbold, Chaz Wickwire, Gian Bernini, the team manager over there, Danny Woodruff, Shah Kobayashi, everybody involved at Lost Surfboards. You guys deserve your praise. And it just doesn't come down to the actual location in San Clemente, California. It comes down, to the global team tour, everybody in Europe and South America, and of course in Australia and Japan. They've done an amazing job. And of course, they still have more surfers potentially qualifying later this year on the Challenger Series too. But, they deserve their flowers, and of course, I think in the end, it just comes down to the consistency of their boards. They've, got an amazing, I don't even want to say replacement to Carissa Moore on the women's side, but Gabby Bryan has just delivered over and over again. Her third win this season.
Crazy.
Congrats, Gabby. And of course, Yago Dora, he's been the most consistent surfer on the men's side so far in 2025. I want to mention another thing, too. There was one of the best heats I've ever seen in this event right here on the men's side. That semifinal between Yago and Griffin has to go down and maybe the heat of the year so far. I mean, just incredible stuff between two powerhouses, and it just proved how good Yago is and how resilient he can be, too. In the end, though, obviously a great year for Lost. Major shout out to Darren Hanley Designs. So 40 years now, I believe. Congratulations to them. They also deserve a lot of praise. They get their first win on the men's side this season, too, with Connor O'Leary, so props to them.
Yeah, that's a great note. Yeah, they, I think right ahead of the event or during the event, they celebrated 40 years. They got the badass old DHD logo going out on boards for Mick and Steph. But I mean, maybe even, well, I wouldn't say more important, but in the arena of importance as achieving 40 years as an elite board builder, they moved to second on the rankings ahead of Sharp Eye. And that seems pretty notable given the trends we've seen over the last few seasons. As you mentioned, first men's CT of this win of the season. Connor O'Leary's first win ever. The boards look awesome, and I can see DHD being a real player. We're going to talk about it in a bit, but like a real player in the coming years, and potentially threatening to dethrone Lost Surfboards, although that's a pretty big hill to climb based on their performance lately.
Yeah, I also think Kika Veselko, our Challenger Series rankings leader on the women's side, now riding Darren Hanley's boards. So major props to him. And, of course, he's also gone out and scouted a couple of surfers worldwide, too. I think that's something that needed to be done.
Sure.
I mean, you've really only been focusing on the Australasian surfers over there. You got to expand it a little bit. Same thing happened with Jason Stevenson. It took him a long time to be able to do that. But how big of a difference has it been having both Miggy and Sam on the team, Dave? I mean, incredible. And I think when it comes to Sharp Eye, yeah, it's still a good event. They're number 3. I think overall they're not pleased. They want to see more out of Felipe. And of course, I go back to the same thing. I think their women's team is really where they need a bit more work. And I was hoping for more from Luana Silva. CI, they dropped down to 4th. And of course, Jason Stevenson, not many surfers right now on tour. They're still at number 5, though, respectively. Close to 100,000 points. I feel like they're going to be able to improve on that after Tahiti. But Kanoa Igarashi, Marco Mignot, big surfers for them. But overall, I still think it just comes down to being able to have an equal balance on both the men's and women's sides when it comes to the Vizsla CT Shaper rankings.
Yeah, we get a lot of feedback from our fans. We get a lot of feedback from the Shapers on how we measure this. And everyone's, it's a collaborative process, right? When we started this, we talked to the Shapers. We felt like this was the best way to kind of measure it. Everyone acknowledged, obviously, different teams have different programs, but we didn't want to remove the actual CT surfer agency, and they elect to go to these different board builders often. We didn't want to pull that out of the measurement, but we may be making some changes to it in future, just to kind of level things out a little bit. I will say this though, we've modeled different ways to rank the last couple of years, best 2 surfers, best man, best woman, whatever it is. Every single year, Matt Biolis, Lost Surfboards are head and shoulders above the pack. And I wanted to say that because I think that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, most people in the know, most core surfers say, yeah, of course, Lost Surfboards is like a high performance brand. I don't know if they're the best, but are probably in the conversation. I think it's just been demonstrated the last few years that whatever they've been doing, however they've sharpened their program, whatever they've done to the boards, however they built the team, it's unmatched at this point. They are the they are the unchallenged, like unquestionable best high performance board label on the planet right now. And the results speak for themselves. And we might tweak a few things in future, but the last 3 years, I am just blown away by how good they've been.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk to Mike Raiola, one of the OG guys over there in Laos, and he's like, yeah, I mean, since the beginning of the 90s, our standard was never to be the best in the world. It was just to be there. And I think when it comes to their philosophy and, of course, their environment at work, they're just cool guys. They have a really, really awesome work environment. And in the end, they produce some of the most high-performance equipment, as you said, in the world. Now, that being said, and I know Matt's going to kill me if I say this, but I already said it once, they need a men's world champion now. Because you've had it on the women's side for years with Carissa Moore. There's a good chance you have it this year with Gabby Bryan too. But on the men's side, you've had people qualify before. You've had people be contenders. But nobody has ever actually won on a Mayhem so far when it comes to the men's championship tour. This could potentially be the year. You have Yagodor, front runner, to win that thing at the moment. Go out there and capitalize, especially in Fiji, where you've demonstrated you're capable of winning both the men's and women's side last year. Griffin winning, Aaron winning. They both ride for Mayhem. I think this is a big moment for them. And imagine if they're able to achieve both the men's and women's world championship right here in Fiji. That would be huge for them. I mean, they're already world number one. They'd be rubbing it in to everybody else when it comes to the Business CT Shaper rankings too.
Yeah, that's a great point. As far as the equipment that the world's best were using, we'll just stick with finals day because obviously the conditions of JBA changed. But what did you notice? Obviously, we're on the West Coast, but what did you notice with your keen eye, Mitch, in terms of what kind of equipment were people riding? What kind of tail templates? Like what kind of construction? Did anything stand out to you at Jeffreys Bay?
Yeah, I really like the fact that a lot of people actually went for step-ups that day, too. I think shortboard still would have worked. You want something just a little bit longer to paddle into it. But yeah, pretty standard, really. You want something with a good amount of rocker, not a huge amount of volume in the nose, because you do get up in vertical, especially Connor and Niago on the backhand. You don't actually want to dig that nose or plug it into the water coming out of the turn, which is, something a lot of surfers tend to do at beach breaks because they're looking so far down the line. At a point break, I know you're looking down the line, but you got to focus on the task at hand with just the one section that you have in front of you. So that's something that I especially notice when it comes to timing. You want a more broad end tail, which is something we really see with both the DNA and the Juliet on the DHD side. Probably their two best-selling boards at the moment. 77 still the staple from Sharp Eye. We saw Felipe ride that into the semifinals over there. Probably their most high-performance surfer that they make. And I think in the end, for somebody like Jason Stevenson, Golden Child, you still have the Monster X. And in the end, it comes down to comfort and probably something you've been riding a little bit more. And maybe even, what's my step-up? What's the actual model that I brought for my step-up? Because you're probably not bringing too many of them. But I think when it comes to Mayhem, Driver 3.0, probably the most ridden board out of the CT surfers, both men's and women's. It feels like it's been working so far because they were able to get two finalists both on the men's and women's side. Another big shout-out, Molly Picklum, too. Another final. She has, 3 in a row now, Dave? Impressive stuff. She was one wave away, though, from keeping Gabby off of it and winning her consecutive event right here in J-Bay. But, yeah, another big surfer and another DHD for Molly Picklum.
That was a weird moment in the women's final, now that you bring it up again, because I don't know if I'm not sure if she said anything after the final, but there were a couple of waves that came in, in the last moment. Molly had priority. She needed a score and then just didn't paddle for either of the waves, and then that was it.
And given how she was surfing, I mean, that score required wasn't really that high for her.
It's kind of like a 6 or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with how the waves are, with how you're surfing, you feel confident about everything. I feel like you probably would have had a chance to be able to get that one. But in the end, you're still world number one. A championship in South Africa would have sounded fine. You know what sounds better, though? World championship. And if that happens for both her and Darren Hanley, even better. I mean, because he's deserving a world championship on the women's side, too, after the absence of Stephanie Gilmore. So I think it would be huge for him, Dave.
Fair enough. Well, Mitch, it hasn't quite been finals day at J-Bay conditions here in Southern California, but we've had some south swell. I always had some good waves. What have you been riding yourself?
Yeah, I'm still kind of sticking to the Uber Driver XL from Lost. I have a real good zippy fish that I told you about that I've been loving for certain days. It's not my favorite board at just a normal beach break, just because I want to fit in tighter in the pocket, and I feel like most of the time that thing wants to go down the line. For those kind of cases, if it's a little bit smaller, I have the OG puddle jumper, which actually Nate Yeoman's got me on. I asked Matt and Nate if I should order a Pisces, which is one of their newer models. And he's like, I think the tail's maybe a bit too drawn in for you, so maybe try the OG puddle jumper. It works well. It's a little bit of a wider tail, so it has a lot of move, but it's really thin. So I can move it way quicker. When it comes to a lot of the other boards, still riding the Pyzel White Tiger and a Dark Arts. That's kind of real good standard all-around board. But yeah, I think most of the surfs that I've had in the last couple of weeks have really been on the Uber XL because, as you said, we actually have had a good run of swell red here. It's pretty flat at the moment, though, which is kind of good knowing that we have the U.S. Open coming up in a few days, and I think we're going to get some swell for that. But what about yourself? I know Ventura's been on the up and coming, too.
Yeah, we've had a few sneaky little sandbars around. I got a couple of work trips coming up to Tahiti and Fiji, and not that those are surf trips, but you know, if
they kind of are.
If you get to surf, you want to be able to paddle. So, I've been trying to find little waves. So I've been riding an old Spine Tech Happy Everyday Swallowtail with the JJF Futures medium large
good combo
fiberglass fins. So yeah, pretty standard stuff for me, but I might be getting a better everyday in time. So I was trying to ride a similar template.
So you still haven't gotten it?
No, we don't need to put people on blast on the podcast. But
oh my god,
no, we'll see. But it's been fun. It's been fun to ride a shortboard again and some punchy waves. It's interesting. Sometimes if I go a while without riding it, and I'll be like logging with my little guy or something, and my daughter. And then I hop back on the shortboard. Everyone's used to this. Like you're like, oh man, my paddling ability, but I think for me in particular, and everyone's different. Like I'm a lot more intentional and deliberate with what I do on the shortboard. So like I'll make sure I'm building up enough speed. I make sure that I'm trying to do like a proper bottom turn and hit sections that like want to be hit, as opposed to maybe forcing things if I'm like surfing every day and kind of reinforcing some bad habits I've had for 30 years where it's like, man, but I think it's good to ride different equipment and kind of just take a different mindset to other boards.
You know, it's a good topic. I'm bummed that I don't have any physical evidence right here, right now. But you know how big of a nerd I am for fins. And just want to talk about Ethan Ewing's new fin, too. It's a prototype that they've been working on for a couple of years at Futures, right? And we all know Ruby and the amazing job he does with Vince and the entire crew over there at Futures. And majority of those ones made right here in the U.S. And I just think it comes down to the surfers that you had actually, you know, proving that this fin is worth it. You have Kanoa, you have Italo, and of course it's Ethan's model. But in the end, having something for those guys that are going so fast, they want control most of the time. And I still think that's why John Florence's Tech Flex model is still the best sold anywhere outside of, you know, the FCS2, maybe Mix or Kolohe's. I just think this is probably the best all-around model. And now actually having tried Ethan's fins, this is a fin that is really appropriate for when you're going fast and you just need to stop at any given moment. So props to those guys over there. It took him a couple of years to actually get it out into the market, but in the end, you have the world's best surfer and, you know, potentially a world champion at the end of this year with his own fin model. And I really like just being in the mindset of being open to all these ideas, trying different things, and especially at a beach break where conditions can change multiple times in a day, go out there and try them. I mean, what is there to lose, really?
Yeah, it's a great point. Well, that's our Vissla CT Shaper ranking segment. Congratulations again to Matt Biolas and Lost Surfboards. We're going to keep measuring it in Tahiti and kind of look ahead to the future and see who might be challenging the back-to-back-to-back CT Shapers of the year there. We're going to take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to talk fantasy and answer listener questions.
Welcome back to the Lineup Podcast. I'm your part-time co-host, Mitchell Salazar, and that is the great Dave Proda. And let's talk fantasy, Dave. As always, we do want to say a big thank you to everybody who's been playing in our fantasy league. This year, the lineup pod, we're running not only our CT fantasy contest, we're also going to be playing all season long and awarding the overall top 3 fantasy winners at the end of the season with gift cards to the WSL store valuing $50 to $150. That means you guys have only one event left to potentially win a couple of those prizes. Update on fantasy rankings after Jeffreys Bay in our lineup fantasy mega league. The champion for the event, Juanderful, Juan-Derful, 1468, 16 points. Silver Surfer, it's pretty funny that he has a photo of Kelly Slater as his profile picture too, 1468, 09. Wow, that is really close between first and second. Waikiki at number 3rd, 1460, 83. Sea Slider at 4th, 1433, 40. And Ben's 2281, 1432, 50. He was number 5. Overall rankings, though, Dave, this is where it really matters. Dane Gurr in first, 77, 78, 42. Joey Pepperoni, one of the most consistent all year long, in second, 77, 30, 16. LAMP at 3, 76, 94, 92. And Perry Nara at 4, 76, 29, 10. And rounding out the lineup, Slick Ricks at number 5, 76, 06, 25. So Dane Gurr at the moment, not by a whole lot, but he is leading in our overall rankings. So Dave, dust is settled. What are we looking at when it comes to Jeffreys Bay, your team?
Well, just a timely shout out to Silver Surfer, who's got Kelly in the profile with, Fantastic Four First Steps hitting the movie theaters this week. Kelly was the model for the original Silver Surfer.
No, he was not.
Yeah. In 2007, he was CGI'd. I don't know if he wore like the weird ping pong ball suit or anything. Maybe he did. But yeah, unless I'm like misremembering that, like Mandela effect. But like, yeah, no, they based the Silver Surfer's movements off of Kelly back in 2007 for that movie.
That's crazy.
I figured he'd talk about that more. Anyway, whatever. That's his journey.
I'd love to.
Yeah. We can rip off the Monday Mass Boys and do like a nerd corner when we just talk about movies and TV. How did I do? Back to the question. The Corona Sarah Open J-Bay.
You've been avoiding it, so now I know.
No, I think this is I had to go back, but check the tape. But I think this is the best I've done in our league. I finished 320th in the event in our league. For my team, my women's team, Tier A, Power Surfer, Gabby Bryan, delivered. Major for me. Tier B, Isabella Nichols, pretty good. Semifinals, Betty Luce-Kerr-Johnson, quarterfinals, we'll take it. And then Tier C, Lakey Peterson, quarterfinals. So I think my women's team was pretty good. What about you, Mitch? How'd you do in our league at the event? And then break down your women's team, and then we'll do men's.
So for the event, I'm at 715.
Ooh.
979.54 my points.
Ooh.
I had Katie Simmers, Power Surfer. My mistake. I had Sakura and I had Lulu. And I was expecting more out of the both of them. Sakura loses a close heat against Isabella, 4 and 5. It's respectable. I understand. But then I also had Lakey, our defending champion, as my Tier C surfer. And overall right now, in the league, 594, so not horrible, but I could be doing better.
Ooh, overall, I should look at that too. Hold on, I don't want to look at that. Oh, 528. Hey.
Oh my God, you're beating me.
I mean, I really think 320 at this event put me in a good spot. On the men's side, I had Jordy Smith in Tier A, was my Power Surfer. I really think if Jordy'd gotten to finals day, he could have made a run in those conditions. As it was, didn't happen. Ethan Ewing was my second Tier A. He went down in the quarters. Tier B, Leonardo Fioravanti went down the quarters. Good run. Felipe Toledo seemed like easy money, like putting him on in Tier B. Semifinals finish. Good run. And then I had Jack Robinson. He went down in the round of 16. The reason I picked Jack is I'm impressed with his surfing kind of everywhere. He's won on point breaks in the past. And I really felt like the way the arc of his season was going, he needed a result here to kind of vault him into challenging position in Tahiti and a shot at the world title in Fiji. He's still in the mix, but I think he probably wanted better than the round of 16. And then I took a flyer on Al Cleland. I was just really wanted to see the way he surfed a point break in J-Bay. He went down in the elimination round. And then Tier C, Matty McGillivray, local boy, didn't pan out, went down the elimination round. And then I went with Rio Waida just because I think Rio's point of difference in how fast he surfs.
He's
forehand and backhand, it didn't pan out for me. But what was your men's team like? We talked about Al Cleland, but do we have any other overlap?
Yeah. Jordy, of course, he was my power surfer.
Right.
I agree with you. I think if he gets it into finals day, he's probably winning. Just given the conditions, surfing 3 heats, you know how to really pace yourself out there. I had a Kanoa, good result for him again. Boy, and he is having an amazing year. If we have an unofficial award for most improved surfer, it should go out to Kanoa this year.
Third in the world. Like, we've been talking about him all year, but I did like a double take this morning where I'm like, I figured he was in the mix, but like third in the world, that's awesome.
Well, if he stays there, or say he moves up to second or first, but even 3 or 2, he has a chance to watch the first match at the finals and then eventually, kind of see how things are going. And he's dangerous, dude. I'm telling you, over there in Fiji, if it's 4 to 6 feet, he is really good.
Right.
I have Felipe too, semifinals. He's at number 7 right now, by the way. Has a chance in Tahiti. I'd love to see him actually, get a try and chance over there. Leo, once again, what an amazing year for him. He's at number 10, 5th place finish. I had a Crosby Tier B too. I was, hoping this was going to be a good event for him. Really good style, point breaks, obviously, and a wave that has some similarities to lowers when it's smaller. And I just think with him and Griffin being paired up this year, that they've had a good chemistry between the two of them. I also had Al. I'm still expecting more from him. I expect him to make it in the finals day. I'm not really going to be stoked with anything else at Al in Tahiti. And Tier C, I went with both local surfers. I had Matt McGillivray, pretty bummed out on the way he surfed. I felt like he probably could have done a lot more. I did have Luke Thompson, though, and I will say once again, maybe not a whole amount of points on my fantasy team, but boy, was I impressed, for his second CT event. So really stoked to see Luke Thompson, who is in the running to qualify, by the way, with the way he's doing on the Challenger Series so far.
Yeah. No, I mean, South Africa, obviously they have a history of producing elite surfers. They've got world-class waves all over the country. And I just think the big challenge is the remoteness, right? In terms and the finances of getting around, doing the tour, making the jump to the CT. But whether it's Jordy Smith or Mikey February or Travis Logie or Bianca Baitendog, Rosie Hodge, like every time a South African surfer makes it to the championship tour, they leave a huge mark. So yeah, interested to see how Luke goes. I was impressed with him at Jeffreys Bay, and yeah, huge congrats to our fantasy champions at the event, and also overall one more event to go. So we're getting down to the business end of a season in terms of winning that prize. But yeah, thanks for everyone for playing.
Yeah, and whoever chose both Marco and Connor on their team, you guys are doing very well on your fantasy. Those were 2 sleeper picks.
Sure.
And of course, on the women's side, once again, Bella Nichols, semifinal. She's up to number 4 in the rankings worldwide. Really good for her. Caroline Marks, very good semifinal. She is almost tied with Sakura at the moment, and she is a former champion in Tahiti. Watch out for her competing over there as well. I still like Katie's chances of becoming a world champion back-to-back this year. I know she hasn't really performed the way she's wanted to the last 2 events, both in Brazil and in J-Bay. To me, she looked very well, though, in both marks, and I feel like at lowers, too. So still a chance. I think it all depends on how she visibly looks over in Tahiti. But looking at that event right now, anything we should look out for when it comes to the rankings or fantasy, of course, too. I'm still going to go ahead and say Griff. I mean, his last 6 events, he's only had 1 throwaway. he has either made the final or the semis in those 6 events outside of the throwaway, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of talked about it a little bit in winners and losers too, but I just keep an eye on those spots 6 through 10 on the men's tour right now. Griffin, Felipe, Jack, Barron, and Leo. Obviously, Connor's still a mathematical chance as well, but it's just so tight, and with 4 spots up for grabs between 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I think there's just going to be some really hungry surfers looking to edge in. And then on the women's side, with only 2 spots remaining, I think kind of those 2 spots of Caroline Marks and Tyler Wright, proven world champions, like very good in the barrel, very good in Tahiti. I think they're going to be the ones hunting those last potential spots with Isabella Nichols and Betty Lusakura Johnson. So, but as always, the forecast kind of dictates everything. We'll see what kind of conditions we get in Tahiti. It's a hugely different monster when it's like 3 feet and kind of turn oriented to 6 to 8 foot and starting to get backless.
Or maybe really small and super west, which makes the drops even gnarlier. Like, I love to see that too. Okay, sleeper picks on my end on the men's side. Local wildcard, Kali Voss, former runner-up,
tough.
Olympic gold medalist. You got to watch out for him. He should be a guarantee on your fantasy. Miggy Pupo, former champion out there. He actually defeated Kali. He's number 13. Doesn't really have a chance to qualify for the finals anymore, but could be his best result. Top 10, once again. We'll see. I would have to also put Cole Houshman, Connor O'Leary on that list personally. And once again, Al Cleland on the men's side. Do not forget about that name when we head into Tahiti. Tyler Wright, still a chance to qualify for the finals. I think she is going to be difficult to beat. And I think if it's good and Erin can compose herself, she also has to be a lock-in for your fantasy. So big thanks to everybody playing fantasy this year on our Lineup Podcast Mega League. Make sure to lock in your teams days ahead before we actually hit the Lexus Tahiti Pro presented by IC. And we will be talking about that a little bit more once we get closer to the event. Now let's get into our listener questions segment. Once again, we do want to thank everybody for writing in at the Lineup Pod. If we don't get to your question today, we will do so our very best to respond in our DMs as we always do. First question, Dave, at South Coast David. Should there be a coaches league like the Shapers one? Dog would be killing it.
Yeah, well, we celebrated Dog today. Yeah, I mean, I kind of, when I hear a question like that, I'm like, well, they all still rip too. Like, do people want to see them surf? Like, it's like a seniors tour or something. Yeah. So I'm in for both. Like, I'd like to see them surf still. As far as the rankings go, like we do with the Vissla CT Shaper rankings, yeah, I think there's a partner that steps up. We can do that. It's not too difficult. I think the interesting thing with the coaches is they like to kind of fly under the radar a little bit. And I actually think there's probably more movement amongst the coaches and the surfers than there are amongst the shapers and the surfers, at least in season. Sometimes you see it kind of moving around, and personalities can clash and stuff. So I don't know. That's a fun question. What do you think, Mitch?
I'd love to see it personally. I think it should be ranked on their collective team. And given this is a more difficult one to do than the actual Vissla CT Shaper rankings, because one coach could only have one surfer, and that's totally fine too. Right. But for the most part, you're having 3-4 people on a team in comparison to just one. So what I'd like to see is maybe just a surf off at the end of the year, a specific location or something like that. Hey, why not? Dog still rips. Tom Whitaker could easily make multiple heats on the QS if you wanted to right now. Luke Egan is an animal. I mean, that guy was, top 10 in the world for a long period of time. Leandro Dora rips. Leandro da Silva, his protege, who actually coaches Yago right now, is another awesome ripper. He is close to 40, I want to say, out of the south part of Brazil. But I'm just thinking of who else. Jake Patterson. Yeah, Micro when he was still coaching on tour, great surfer. Yeah, so there's no shortage. I mean, I don't know of any coaches that don't rip on tour. It's like Chris Gallagher,
prerequisite. Yeah.
Who else can I think of
Snips.
right now? What? Yeah, Mike Parsons, and we'd put Tanner Gudauskas in with Sawyer because he helped her out.
Man, I don't know if the rest of those coaches are going to like us adding Tanner there at the end. Tanner's still I still think Tanner should be on the CT, but that's my own journey. So
He's definitely deserving of it. He has the talent for it too, and yeah, I'd love to see it. Once again, if we do have a partner, somebody that wants to sponsor that segment, or just sponsor a small event, we do a small broadcast for it too. Maybe get the couch surfing show going, and I think we're all for it. Let's do it at the U.S. Open the next year. I think it would be something really entertaining for everybody, including you guys. So, great question at South Coast, David. Thank you very much. And our second question comes from a very talented producer of ours on the broadcast, at Alden Milby. Shout out Milby Shannon, we love you. How the F is Gabby number 2 on the rankings with 3 wins?
Yeah. Milby Shannon, maybe the best surfer that Texas ever produced. Milby rips, and he's a very talented producer. But yeah, it's a good question. Like 3 wins is insane. The way the rankings work, you get your 1 throwaway before the cut, no throwaways after the cut. Where you're looking at the comparisons between Molly and Gabriella, Molly this year, she's got 1 win, right? But then she's also got 3 runner-up finishes. And she's been so consistent. She's got another 3 semifinal finishes and then 2 quarterfinal finishes. She's only got 1 result where she hasn't made the quarters, and that was her throwaway. Whereas with Gabby, it's been a little bit high-low, right? She's got those 3 major wins, but she's had 3 results where she's finished 9th place. And she's only dropping 1 of those. So that's dropped her just slightly. So she's, 2,500 points. But it is interesting, right? It's a true kind of historic conversation, right? Between like consistency or the person who feels like the best surfer of the year, because they got 3 huge wins, right? In El Salvador, in Margaret River, and now in Jeffreys Bay. 3 right-handers, by the way. So we'll see what happens over the next couple events. But good question. And it's going to change next year. Obviously, the tour structure is changing in the way that we're determining world champions, and also the throwaway results. But it's a good battle right now between Molly and Gabriella.
And as you said, Gabby has the 3 really bad throwaways. Loses to Isabella Nichols and kind of a surprise over there at Pipe.
Right.
So has the 1 throwaway at the beginning of the year, then loses out early in an event where I think most people were expecting her to do very well over on the Gold Coast, and then I think the one big surprise was given at lowers, not the one in Rio. That's really unexpected. And, props to Arena. She surfed a great heat, very competitive too. The one at lowers, though, I think it was the first heat of the morning against Sawyer, and she just had absolutely no answer. She seemed very off in that heat. But no, props to Molly Picklum. I mean, she is still the most consistent surfer on the planet. Once again, she goes on one of those waves at the end of the final right here in J-Bay. She potentially wins another event. To her credit, 3 finals in a row, that is extremely difficult to do and kind of unheard of, too, when it comes to the women's tour, at least in recent years. Good question, though, Milby. Appreciate it. And
also, you should know you're a producer.
Don't rub it in. He's going to get mad at me next week. So.
Milby definitely knows. He's just he just disagrees philosophically, and he may have a point.
Yeah, well, there's a reason why this is something that's always up for change, right, Dave? And props to you and your team. You guys do an incredible job determining all these things too. And there's a reason why we're going back to the old format next year too. So, the big thank you, Milby, for the question, and I'll see you in a few days over at the Open. So our third question actually comes from another gentleman I know, Brazilian that now resides in Southern California, at Luis Coruja. Top 5 scenarios. Assuming there are only 2 spots available on the men's side, who are your favorites? Italo, Ethan Griffin, or Jack? My picks are Italo and Jack.
Okay, so I got to pick 2 spots out of this group. Italo, Ethan Griffin, or Jack. Let's go back to the rankings here for a second. Jack has the biggest uphill climb, right? He's about 4,500 points below Ethan. I love him in Tahiti. I think Italo's the safest based on this particular question, right? Because Italo's currently 4th. He's a former Tahiti winner. He's
defending champ.
Yeah, he's almost unparalleled in left-handers. So I don't see him sliding, if anything. So I like him. And then Griffin and Jack. Man, I'm going to give it to Jack. Like, I love Griff out there. I just think Jack he's one of those surfers that at a wave like Teohopu, he has like a John-esque kind of connection with it. And I can see him like ascending there. Again, Griffin's amazing. Ethan's amazing. But I think that this is one of those venues where if Jack's going to do anything, and he's been kind of quiet since the start of the year, or I guess since the middle of the year, kind of, right? He had that win. But we haven't been talking about him a ton. So I think if we're going to be talking about Jack, it's going to be coming out of Tahiti. So those are my picks. I guess it's the same as our questionnaires, Italo and Jack. What about you, Mitch?
Well, and just another add-on question for you. Are you keeping them at 4 and 5, respectively, out of the event, too?
Oh, man. I mean, it would... Yeah, let's see. So Italo's... Kanoa's great in Tahiti, too. I just don't see him losing a ton of ground. But I guess if I had to say, then I'd go Italo 3, Kanoa 4, Jack 5. Be my guess.
Okay.
And not like Kanoa sliding a ton, but Italo just gets a monster result.
Right. Which he needs one, honestly. I mean, has a really bad Australian leg. And the only result that he's had, which even still isn't necessarily the best by his standards, is the 5th in Rio.
Right.
I don't know what's happened. I have my doubts still. I know Reynolds is doing an incredible job with him, but overall, I'm not entirely convinced. I feel like if there's a way to switch it around, it's right here at a wave where you don't necessarily need to perform on the face. It all just comes down to barrier riding for the most part. I think Ethan has a lot to prove right here.
Right.
I think if he makes it into the semis, he has a real good chance of becoming world champ. I mean, that just proves a lot right there. You go into an event where you need a result because, honestly, there's just over 700 points separating Ethan at number 5 and Griffin at number 6.
Right.
And once again, I am very convinced that Griffin has just been on a tear, on a roll. The last 6 events, you look at them, he only has one throwaway. It's either been semis or finals outside of that. What I will say, though, and this is the one thing that I think is missing from Griff at the moment, is a victory. Because you look at the finals results right there, you haven't been able to win, though.
Right.
And I know they've been against Cole, who just had maybe the best heat of his life against Griff in Brazil in the final. And then over there in WA, where you just sat for a super long time and the wave never popped up against Jordy.
Right.
I'm still going to go with him, though. I'm actually going to go Italo, Griff, 4, 5, respectively. And I think when it comes to the top 3, I think it stays relatively similar. I think Kanoa probably moves up a spot. I think Jordy drops down to number 3. I just like the chances of the wild cards over there in the lower seats, personally. I think you got to watch out for Kali. You got to watch out for Hal. And a lot of those guys that are mid-tiers that will eventually go up against the top seeds, those are the people that have a lot more to prove at this event, just end of the year. But for the people hovering around the top 5 and the people inside of the top 5, it's now or never. It's now or never, especially with this format. It might be your only chance to win a world championship.
Great ones. Well, thanks to everyone that wrote in at the Lineup Pod. Mitch, thanks so much for breaking down the Corona Sarah Open J-Bay. Got a couple weeks before Tahiti. And yeah, buddy, I look forward to seeing you down at the Open.
Yeah, hopefully you get some swell. I know the forecast looks pretty good. So we have the longboard event first, and then we actually go into the Challenger Series afterwards. Should be really fun. It's one of our best events all year long. And if you're not in the Huntington Beach area, you can always watch it online on worldsurfleague.com.